All right, we're live. Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, everyone's already chiming in the chat. That's great. Um, why don't you tell us where you're calling in from? It's always fun to see how distributed everyone is. New York City, never heard of it. Got it. Well, Emma, why don't you tell people what you're in the midst of right now, just so that they know
Oh,
you have to leave.
sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma. I am our marketing intern here at Slate. So if you're like, that doesn't look like Christina Pirro, it's not. I am super excited to be here today. And the weather is also super excited to be here because I don't know if anyone else is in the Midwest, but we have a tornado watch going on here in Indiana. So if I get swept away,
Yeah.
Carmen, you're in good hands.
Yeah, I mean, I will figure it out. I've technically never done the MS job or Piro's job, so I wouldn't say you're in good hands, but I would say like mid-capable hands. So curious if anyone else is in this like midst of a tornado. Please let us know if you think you might get swept away. But I was saying I think there's some potential here for like a Dorothy type of storyline, which I think would be quite fun.
Honestly, yeah, I think that could be great content. I can go live on my phone. Hey guys.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that'd be so much fun.
Well, I would say make just like a commitment that if you do get blown away, at least bring your phone and we can figure something out.
Right. Yeah, no, I will definitely still be active on Slack. No worries there. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what we expect of you. Nothing less.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, we are incredibly excited today to be speaking with the HubSpot crew, the Marketing Against the Grain specifically crew. We're going to be talking about their most recent social media report, State of the Industry report for 2026. There's lots to dive into. I want to bring our two special guests on. So let's get them here. Hi, Brenna. Hi, Lauren.
Hey.
So lovely to have you on the Social Club. And of course, let us begin with intros. I feel like I always appreciate when people introduce themselves because I want to hear what you're working on right now. And maybe my sort of icebreaker question for you is what was the thing in the report that sort of surprised you the most? So Brenna, I'm going to put it over to you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Bryna. I lead our HubSpot social media channels for the brand. So anywhere that you see the HubSpot logo on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, etc., I have a small team under me that runs all those channels. As far as what stood out in the report, Carmen and I were talking about this yesterday. I mean, I've been in the biz for close to like 18 years, like always attached to social in some capacity, like early days of like Facebook, company pages and so on. And what struck me with this report is that executives really suddenly care deeply about organic brand building, especially as it pertains to social. And if you've been doing social for as long as I have, you were always kind of like waiting for that time or that era where like social would have a seat at the table versus being the afterthought. So that actually was really refreshing to see be data backed, that execs at the C-level deeply care about it and are investing in it. And I was like, yes, finally our time to shine.
Totally. I also think there's something so vindicating about having like a sense that you can feel or that you've kind of been noticing, and then to have that like affirmed by actual numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, Lauren, I want to hear from you. Tell us who you are, what you do at HubSpot, and again, what sort of surprised you in this most recent report?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Lauren. I work for Marketing Against the Grain, and I lead all of their socials. So LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all of the fun things. And yeah, we were really talking as a team yesterday, just piggybacking off of what Bryna said. It's that now execs are really invested in the work that we're doing. But one other thing that stood out to me was just the shift in how social media is being used. So in the report, we surveyed over 1,000 marketers, and one of the things that they said is that they're using social media for brand awareness, which I think that has really shifted in the last few years since, before we used to think about traditional avenues of focusing on brand awareness, but we're realizing that that brands are really having a lot of fun on social right now. We're seeing them in the comments, we're seeing them really engaging in ways that help move the needle in terms of being able to put your brand spotlight. So it's just really great to see that and the value of social growing in that capacity over time.
Yeah. And I think obviously you're saying like brands are having fun on social, but I think HubSpot's done a good job of having fun on social for a long time. And I feel like HubSpot was maybe one of the first companies I saw on LinkedIn that could take itself like a little less seriously, and that was definitely, I felt that you guys were trailblazers in that regard, where I saw the type of social HubSpot was putting out, and I was like, oh, thank God somebody can like crack a joke on this platform, So I think you guys have definitely led the way there.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, you guys deserve your flowers. I want to, I always want to get to the questions, and we'll have time at the end we'll do some Q&A. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. I hope it's clear, but there's basically like a chat portion, and then there's a Q&A portion. If you make a grave error and you put your question in the chat, we will still find it. But if you have questions that come up throughout the talk or the webinar, please pop them in there, and we will try to get to everything. And we'll have some time towards the end to address questions that anyone might have. I was trying to think if there's any other housekeeping. Oh yeah, and then we'll also chat a little bit about Marketing Against the Grain and Slate towards the end too, in case you are here and meeting us for the first time and you're like, what is all of this about? I'm also realizing I never introduced myself. I'm Carmen. I lead social and content strategy at Slate. We're the ones who are putting on this webinar, but I'm the one who tries to figure out how we're going to show up on LinkedIn, and a lot, like you were saying, Lauren, and we're not so huge on Instagram or TikTok, but we do a lot of EGC. And so we're all about, we sort of expand our brand into us as representatives. And that's a little bit about me and what I do at Slate. So let's hop into the report. We are here first and foremost to talk about HubSpot's 2026 State of Social Report. I love that. It sounds very official. I want for you to give us a sense, like explain what goes into an undertaking like this, because this is serious research, and which kinds of marketers are pulled and how many marketers are pulled, and what is the scope of this type of project? When does it begin? How long does it take to wrap up? Lauren, I'm going to pass the mic to you first, and you tell me about like what goes into this.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I always look at reports when they come out, and I'm so interested in how many people were surveyed and who was surveyed, and really how long it takes to put together a report like this. So HubSpot actually sent out surveys to all different types of marketers, B2B, B2C, and this started in February of this year. So it's taken months to really aggregate that data. And one of the really cool things is oftentimes when I read reports, no shade to any execs or leads, but it oftentimes has a lot of their perspective. But what I love about this report is that it blends both of those together. So we see a lot of, feedback from social teams who are doing a lot of the on the ground work. We know as social media managers, we're like in the trenches, and it's just so good to hear the perspective. What are they actually focusing on in this report? So over 1,000 marketers were surveyed from multiple different sort of sections within marketing. And so it's just really great to see all of the amount of time and energy, and also just the breadth of marketers and the type of marketers that were surveyed for this, including even our own Bryna, who's in the report as well. So really great to see all of the legwork go into the report.
I'll just add to that. Like, I've been at HubSpot for almost 3 years now, and when I first started getting pulled into marketing these reports, I was actually very struck by the intensity and the research that goes into it. I didn't know that being on the outside. Feels like HubSpot is well known for its trend reports and its blog content that cites all this, these great juicy stats. And before joining HubSpot, I referenced them throughout my career, trying to convince execs to do this or that, and I would reference the stats. And when I got to HubSpot and I started getting close to how the sausage was made behind these trend reports, I was like, wow, okay, these are like no joke. There's a very deep entrenched research team inside HubSpot, and they take a lot of care and intentionality with the types of questions and how it's quantitative and qualitative. So it's exciting to see that this one is specific to social media. And like Lauren said, they surveyed all different tiers and levels, B2C, B2B, but also like different titles, different experience levels. So if themes are coming across in the report, it's from the masses of like your practitioner friends.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I were talking before, Bryna, about how HubSpot has a dedicated research team, and like that isn't always the case at places that put out research. And there's all sorts of aggregate data that can be I don't want to say like pawned off, but I think there's aggregate data that can be positioned as research when you're like, well, it might not have come from qualified researchers.
Right.
I'm doing this in a respectful way, but I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want to know, like there are a lot of reports that one comes across when you work in marketing, and especially if you spend time in. What is it about this particular report that you feel differentiates it? What is different about HubSpot's report?
Yeah, I think, and Lauren, feel free to chime in. I think, there's marketing reports, right, where the state of marketing is going, and maybe social media is like a page or two about it. But this is fully social, for like social in depth, from creators, how they're used in social, to performance marketing, and how it where's its place now in this shift, how teams are using AI to create content. I think we'll probably touch on this at some point, but I think one of the things that was hard for social teams over the last decade is production, right? We're on the hook to create high volume of content constantly, and to do that, you need an agency or a full in-house creative team to keep the machine pumping. And now with AI, there's a bit of a blessing and a curse with that, in that you can get to production fairly quickly with AI generating some of that content, but at the same time now we're in we'll talk about this, but we're in a sea of sameness. So I think what's interesting is that I'm noticing a shift in the industry, and this is all fully data backed in validating maybe some of the shifts that everyone else is seeing as well. But to answer your question, it's all social, which sometimes you see these trend reports and it's usually just a page or two.
Yeah. No, it is nice to have something dedicated for, social teams. I don't know if I would say social teams are growing in terms of head count, but I do think that their say importance at a company, or the amount that we rely on them at a company for brand awareness, or even just sort of amplifying the company's narrative, that's growing. And so I think that with that growing responsibility, you do need to rely on resources that aren't vibes. So
Exactly.
Yeah. Not to say that vibes are terrible. I think one vibes still in their strategy, but it can't be the entirety of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say it is, this is related. It's an understatement to say that social pros are hungry for data. We often are left out of larger reports, or we only get a page or two. Attribution models aren't great for social media. And I think there's still so much that we have to infer about why social media works for brands and companies. I'm kind of wondering, best case scenario, how do you want social teams and leaders to be using this report, to leverage it, to implement it? How do you want to see this report taken and then have people run with it?
Yeah, Lauren, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. I think someone who's worked from social media manager to producer to director to now leading marketing against the grain, I've always been really nervous about going to my boss and being like, hey, so I want to try this thing on social. I don't know if it's going to work. And so I think with this data in the report, how I envision it as someone who is a social media manager, they can say, hey, what we're seeing in this report is that actually 40% of marketers are really focused on increasing revenue and sales. And I have this really cool idea on how we can do that. It's about taking these incredible stats that are from marketers and being like, hey, the top marketers are saying they're using the platform for this. This is my really cool idea. Let's just go for it. And I think instead of the idea of like, I have this with no credible backing, it makes it a little bit tougher to make your case. And so I'm just hoping this also gives marketers a chance to leverage their voices. I think we're now seeing this big shift that we've already known, which is the importance of social in so many different avenues, from brand awareness to ROI to generating those revenues and sales. And now our time is in the sun. So it's kind of like use this data and run with it, and just enjoy the sun. And also use vibes as an OKR too. Like, hey, we created this vibey video, but also we were able to generate like X amount of subscribers to our newsletter for it. So there's a lot of ways that marketers can take it, but my dream would be, hey, this is what the data says. This is what other big companies are doing. Let's do it too. And then you have that leverage to utilize in your own role.
Yeah.
I've always historically, like I said, before I joined HubSpot, I would use their reports to defend a strategy. And I think one build to what Lauren is saying is, yes, use it to build the case, but I would say also use it alongside your own data. So if you're able to use a tool like Slate or Sprout or whatever, and pull down a year, 6 months to a year of data to use your own data to point in a strategic direction, then the insights in the trend report become hey, it's not just us that's experiencing this, or it's not just us that we have an opportunity to do it. Look at what the industry is saying. So usually I've pulled my own data and then coupled it with an outside perspective. So it's hey, it's not just me, Bryna, saying this. The industry is saying go this direction.
Totally. Yeah. I think triangulating your sources also helps. It adds legitimacy, and that's ultimately why we have reports, is it gives you an extra boost to go. And like you said, Lauren, I guess having the cool idea, that's the vibes part, and then you match it with something that's less vibes, and there you go, you've got some balance.
Yeah.
I would say that a figure that caught my eye when I went through the report was this stat about community. So we've chatted about this, Lauren, quite a bit, this notion. Okay, so here's the figures. 73% of marketers believe community and trust will matter more than reach in the future. And I was whoa, that's a very strong take. And I was also sort of, I don't know if I'd say surprised, but I thought that was a pretty intense finding, because I don't know. So I want to hear more about this. Let's dig into this a little bit. What kind of community building should social teams prioritize right now, and I suppose heading into the future?
Yeah, I think I have been a mouthpiece for community for the last 5 years working in social. I'm if you have no community, you have nothing. No, but it really comes down to really one simple idea, and it's being where your audience is. If you don't know where they are, create that place, whether that's Slack, that's Discord, a Facebook group, but build the space and invite them in, because when you invite them in, you're doing something really special. You're creating sort of this group of super fans. And when you have super fans, like we see maybe with Marvel or these big sort of brands, they become the mouthpieces for whatever it is that you're doing. If it's for the marketing community, if it's for a product, they are the people that are going to champion the work that you're doing. And they're also going to want to listen to you. And also when you create a community and engage with them authentically, which authenticity is the big buzzword for the year. But it's true. You give them reasons to come back. They're oh, I'm actually talking to someone at this company. I'm talking to the person that's building the thing that I love. And you can't replicate that magic in any other way. You can create really great content, which should be a part of your strategy, but bringing all these people into to one place and having those super fans and developing that loyalty, it really is incredible for your brand. And I always like to say an active community of 100 people is so much better and is more worth it than, let's say, an audience of 100,000 who might see your reel, might see your post, but they're not really engaging or valuing the work and product that you're putting out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think something like, I don't have the answer to this, but I think something I'm always like not sure where to place it is like these, like, let's say private or semi-private communities that you build. I'm like, is that social? Is it almost like community is private social, and then your chat, like your LinkedIn page is like public social or something? Like I kind of wonder sometimes how they fit in, and like, do you think, this is me just throwing you a curveball, but do you think that a private community is still social media?
That's such a good question. And I feel like for my community managers, they'd be like, yes,
Yeah.
but the strategy is different. It's
Right.
inherently different. On social teams, let's say you're running a brand, you're like, I'm going to throw this out there. I know it resonates mostly with the community that I have engaged, but I'm also maybe potentially targeting other people who haven't seen my brand. So the lurkers, like, exactly. But in your community, there aren't any lurkers. They're like, I know exactly where I am. I know what I'm doing. And that's also a different level of social that I don't think we've seen build a lot in the ways that it should. I think community managers are now getting their time in the sun like a little bit. But I think it's a totally different strategy to connect deeply with a group of people, but it still is social because the name of social is to connect, is to really vibe with people. And when you vibe with your social fans, it's ultimately the most social thing that you can do, because there isn't like, I'm trying to get you to do something, or you get it, you're already there and there's a reason why you're there, and I'm here to keep you there and to actively like engage with you. So I don't know, there might be different takes, but I think it's social, just a different type of social.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is part of social, but it's true that you're not necessarily trying to put out in a community, you're not trying to put out like acquisition content and nurture content. Like you're really just doing the nurture content. Okay, so another part of this, like another related part in the report was saying that smaller creators and teams might have the edge when it comes to community. I don't find that surprising. I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, you have like a tighter knit group, but okay, we know this is the case, but what can be done if you are not a tiny community? Like, what if you are a big business or a medium-sized business? Brenna, I'm going to ask you here, but like, you're not a small creator, but you want to create community. Where do you start? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think, well, first, and Lauren, feel free to chime in too. I think it starts with like defining your brand voice, because you can sound very differently doing customer support on social versus, you know, chiming in on comments as the brand versus like the actual posts coming out from the brand channels. So I think like first and foremost, defining brand voice keeps everybody sounding like it's coming from the company. And then from there, I think it's, you know, it's a matter of carving out that role, whether it's like a big team inside of a bigger team that is wholly dedicated to community and community management, or it's at least like defining it needs to be someone's job inside of a team. So even if you are like a team of two, like one of the two should have at least 50% of their time devoted to curating and cultivating community. And one thing that like we do at HubSpot is we have like a chronically online sort of team that loves, you know, jumping on trends and like jumping on comments, and we call it kind of like social hygiene. So just every morning they do a scan, they like pop in, they, you know, respond to things as a logo, and then towards the end of the day they do it again. So like even just if it's one person inside your team or a bunch of people doing that, maybe you dedicate like a specific channel. Let's say you had a team of 5 community managers. One manages TikTok, one manages LinkedIn, one manages Reddit. Or if you have a small team, you at least devote the hygiene hours to having the brand or the, you know, the person sort of show up behind the comments. But to Lauren's point, like I feel like this is very commonplace now in social, but just seeing like a brand respond to something, even if it's for the vibes, like we've gotten hundreds of thousands of likes just off of that. And if you do that over the course of like a year, suddenly people are like, what is this HubSpot that keeps popping up in the comments? Like B2B SaaS? Like, what is that? So it's another like micro way to continuously build brand. But I think just defining that it's someone's job to be in the comments and to be like responding to things, or even like quietly flagging, like the brand doesn't need to be talking all the time, but at least like flagging some hot topics that keep bubbling up inside Reddit community or whatever, like taking that to the product team, taking that to your execs and being like, hey, just wanted to put this on your radar, good, bad, whatever. I mean, it just continues to show executives the value of social and the social team.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think someone's like in the chat, like replies are so important, and they are, it's that connection that we're talking about with community. I think we did get into a space of social where we just kind of put the content out there and leave it there. But now people are like, oh, I can engage with my audience. I can actually connect. And I think also the fun thing about community in that way that Brian is mentioning is that I can create my tone and voice as the brand. If I want to be fun and quirky, if I want to, maybe be a little cheeky, I have that opportunity, and you can build a voice around that. And then that can spiral into how your brand shows up in multiple different ways across the marketing team.
Yeah. And maybe, one positive or plus, a pro that you have as a big brand is that when you reply to people often kind of like freak out or think that that's like a really incredible thing. Whereas like, if you're a little brand, people don't think that's as incredible that you took some time out of your day to do that.
But it is a way to get a smaller brand on the radar very easily and very low lift, right? And I do think, one thing I've said to execs in past roles is like, of all the marketing channels, like let's say you're a CMO, like there's the website, there's podcasts, there's newsletters, there's emails, there's paid, there's in-app push notifications. Like there's so many channels that a marketing team, a large marketing team, small marketing team like controls. The one channel or one space that the brand's voice and the brand's personality can really show up in a fun, personable way is social. And so don't take that for granted, because like an email is not going to be necessarily like full of personality. It's got a message. It wants you to do the thing. It wants you to click. Whereas social is the one channel or the one place that a brand can banter back and forth with its, community and fans and customers. And there's an opportunity to have a lot of like surprise and delight in there that no other channel can do. The website can't do that, right? Like, so I would say like push for tone of voice, push for having some kind of community management, because it is the gateway drug into discovering your brand in a very low lift way.
Yeah, totally. There's an agility to social that like no other channel.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think we could do an interview in 2026 and not talk about my flop and increasing distrust that social media users have with online experiences. I feel like these days when I'm on social, I'm always like, is this like real? Is this an AI like avatar? Is this like AI generated? Like I'm constantly having trust issues with the things I see in the feed, and I kind of think it probably has gone so far in the opposite direction that there are real things that I assume are fake because I just don't believe anything anymore. But I want to focus on this theme for a little bit. And, I'm going to start with the bad. Like, what are the detrimental effects that easy access to AI tools have had on marketers? Brenda, I'm going to start with you here.
Well, okay. So all of our execs, like not just HubSpot, but like everybody's bosses over the last year and a half have been saying, AI, adopt AI. We need AI fluency inside our companies. And the upside of that, like I mentioned at the top of our call, is that like for a small social team, being able to use AI to generate your copy or generate your images or generate, you know, a templatized like promo asset, write your execs like, you know, keynotes or whatever. We all got the message and we all started using these tools. The challenges and the research, our research report said it's at like 94% of marketers are using AI. So if you think about mass adoption and everybody's using the same tools in some capacity, they're all using more or less the same language models. So the language models have been trained to sound like this or look like this over time. And the more we keep all using them, the more all of the stuff starts to look and sound the same. And so that's where I think, Carmen, you're referencing like AI slop is real. It's all over the feeds now because we're all using the same tools to mass produce. So that's the downside, is just everything is starting to look and sound the same, but also to your point, like the trust aspect there, like, is this information, you know, trustworthy, or is like this content human? Like, is there a human behind this content, or did someone just run it bot, you know? So I think that won't necessarily go away. I think that will continue to be something that all of our industries, whether you're in tech or beauty or whatever, we're all wrestling with that. So that's the downside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you see it on social too, you know, because I think you'll see a video where somebody's like, hey, here's how I plan 30 days of content with Claude, or this is how we plan our brand's, you know, entire social content calendar with Claude. And it's like, well, yeah, other people did that too. And it turns out you guys produce the same thing pretty much.
Yeah.
And that can be, I think it can be frustrating as the user, you know, like I think that right now we have to be careful about, when we've talked about trust, we've talked about authenticity, like when you are putting out that kind of content, I think you risk losing somebody's loyalty, and then that's pretty hard to win back.
Right.
Obviously, the report goes into the ways that people are using AI, or the ways that marketers specifically are using AI. And Bryna, you were talking about the sea of sameness, which is like, you know, we're all kind of like tiptoeing around this. What would you say that, like, you know, switching this now to more of a positive perspective, what would you say the teams that are managing to break through this sea of sameness, like, what are they doing right now with AI?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of hit on it. There's authenticity that's coming through. So full transparency, we use it at HubSpot, but we've used it. Our first year was really just like testing, what can it do, what can it not do, where is it helpful, where is it hurtful. And what we've learned is that it's a very good literal assistant, right? Like if you have metrics reports, you know, you throw it into Claude or you throw it into one of these models, and it can quickly data crunch and give you kind of like a direction. But what it's not good at is the stuff that humans are really, really good at, which is understanding nuance, understanding culture, understanding humor. And so, like, an analogy that I like to use is like, if you were to go to a restaurant and they were selling, you know, they were known for like their 5-star chef and their steak, and all of a sudden, because of AI, they started microwaving the steak, right? You're still getting a steak and you're still going to the 5-star restaurant, but the quality of that steak is probably going to suffer. And you're going to kind of, like you said, Carmen, you're going to wonder, like, is this worth my money? Is this worth my time to be going to this restaurant? So I think the teams that are doing it well are keeping the chef, the master chef, as the main sort of arbiter of this steak, you know, like they're in charge of the seasoning, they're in charge of how it's plated and how it, you know, how it comes out of the restaurant, the experience that the customer is having when they come to the restaurant. Like the 5-star chef is still at the helm of everything, and where AI has helped is being that sort of like sous chef, right? It can chop the onions and it can throw it in for you, but it can't get the flavor right. It can't get the plating right. So I think that's where, like, we at HubSpot, we use it, but we use it as like a thought partner. And then from there, the human is taking it and thinking about how, especially in our reels and our TikToks, like the performance of the actors, or like how the styling is going to go, or the location. And there's things that we like, use it to write scripts or captions, and then suddenly we're rewriting them as the human because it's just not landing. So having that human ingredient like as a thread throughout the entire process is critical. And then also I would say making sure that you're not just like leveraging it as a, as the microwave, that it's like that it's just like a thought partner.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is too redundant of a question. We can shoot it down if it is. But I mean, you're talking about using it as a thought partner, but like, what is it that like we as humans, what are we so good at, and what should we probably do more of now that we have AI? Like, what is it that we should turn the gas on?
We're messy.
Yeah.
Humans are messy, we're like at every aspect of our lives, like there's always, like a little bit of chaos that comes with humans, or a little bit of fun that comes with humans. And so I think making sure that like messiness and that authenticity and that realness comes through in your content. So using AI as the thought partner, but the final output, maybe that you're shooting it on your iPhone, and that feels like way more authentic than high production, AI generated piece of video. So I think just making sure that some of the messiness and the rawness continues to come through, and that also comes through in your brand voice and your humor too, which I have not yet cracked a funny Claude-ism that we've like shipped out the gate. So yeah, I think just making sure that rawness and that authenticity just is at the core of everything.
Yeah, I remember reading in Rachel Carton in one of her recent newsletters was talking about like how execs are maybe leaning on AI too hard at times. And she was sharing a firsthand story of somebody who'd said, my boss keeps on asking Claude if our ideas are funny. And I was thinking, that sounds
a nightmare.
Yeah, that you would come with the ideas that you generated and then say to Claude, are these good?
Yeah.
It's almost like you need to like flip that and be like, okay, let's take something that Claude generated and ask our humans, is this good?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to think of it.
Yeah. I think I also would say I recently filmed a video on MySpace. We saw MySpace is looking to make its revival. And one of the things that I'm hoping brands do is lean into that authenticity. And in the video, I make the case that MySpace is going to be a place where copywriters and designers get to thrive. And I think in the report, one of the things that AI isn't doing so well for marketers is that image generation, that image editing, that video generation. Those are three things that AI simply cannot do, to Bryna's point. And so when we think about showing up on social, and specifically me, who's excited as a millennial who did HTML coding on MySpace, is that opportunity for us to get in touch with that creativity that we once kind of had, on social, kind of what Bryna was talking about, that messiness, that chaos. Like, I'm going to get in my top 8 and I'm going to rank my friends. And I think as brands think about showing up on MySpace, or really on any social platform, is how can we use AI as the sous chef, and then we run wild with our ideas? Our ideas will never be replicated in the humanness that they are. And so I just want people to remember that, and also remember that your copywriters and designers are really the backbone of that creativity and that vision that you have.
Yeah, totally. I love all of that, and I love the idea of leaning into a little bit more like, or not, I don't know, kind of embracing the messiness that humans are capable of. Okay, I want to fit in one more question before we go to the audience and chatting a little bit more about like what each of our companies does. But in the report, this I thought was very interesting. You note that there is a sizable shift in the way that execs are perceiving and discussing social media. Bryna, you kind of mentioned this at the top of the call. Suddenly there's like this growing legitimacy. First of all, why is this the case? And second, what can social teams do right now to capitalize on this newfound buy-in?
Yeah, I think if you've been a brand marketer or organic social for the last decade, you have watched performance marketing and growth marketing like I said the other day, like we're always the bridesmaid, never the bride for like the last 10 years, right? And I think because historically growth marketing, performance marketing, it was like $1 in translates to $1.25 back, right? Like you could measure that. It was very like a transactional way to market. The thing about, especially with AI infiltrating feeds and language models, you know, pulling from all kinds of sources versus I think like historically that performance marketing model used to drive you to a website to buy or like to download and take you directly to the .com. And with AI in general intercepting the customer journey, whether it's, we're some of our reports are also showing that like 60 to 70% of web traffic is down because people are now, asking Google a question and Gemini is answering, and Gemini is pulling from all kinds of sources, not just a website or a blog any longer. It's pulling from social, it's pulling from creators, it's pulling from Reddit, it's pulling from YouTube, and it's aggregating those as like an answer. So I think it's a combination of the last decade has been predominantly dominated by growth and performance marketing, and the costs are going up. And as a user, you're bombarded with so much information every day that it's getting harder and harder to pay to break through. At the same time, AI is intercepting the old way, like the funnel and the way the customer journey used to go. And so I think execs are starting to really get behind the idea that those factors can turn on and off. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a brand that is showing up consistently across all those little channels I mentioned that, the language models are pulling from, then you're just kind of like talking into the wind. So what I've seen, not just at HubSpot, but like across like my peers, is that execs care deeply about how they're showing up personally, their personal brands, and their personal brands are associated with the brand. They care deeply about how the social team is being resourced and funded because they want a team that can jump on culture and can have that brand personality, because they see it as the long game. It's like if they can keep that as a consistent sort of steady drumbeat of always on brand building, then eventually when you're in the market for a CRM, after you've seen HubSpot showing up in all these fun little cute social places, but also providing you value in these trend reports, suddenly when you're in the market for a CRM, it's a lot easier for us to kind of be top of mind because you've seen us like in these little spots all through the last, 6 months to a year. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not revolutionary for, an exec these days to be investing in brand. I think it's the new way, because again, the last decade's been dominated by performance, and it's kind of like you need both. But at the core, when performance and campaigns and stuff are turned off, it's your brand that is what people are discovering every day, and it's the social team that is carrying that brand on their back.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's that I don't know if you know that classic meme where it's like there's like a guy and he's got somebody standing on his shoulders, and then they always point to the guy as being the social team, and then you're carrying the rest of the whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I tend to think it's a team effort, so I don't think there's always some shoulder carrying, but yeah, and I think part of what you're saying too is that like there's a sneaking compounding effect too that has happened over the last decade or something like that, where it's like, okay, maybe in the beginning you couldn't see us coming, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's like it's shooting up, and something else has kind of taken hold, and I'm glad. I think there's such. I think that it's fun to work in this space that is a little bit more agile, that is a little bit more flexible, and anyway, so the report is so crucial to have so that you can sort of like pitch these creative proposals, but then also say like, and here's my backup,
Yeah, exactly. I think the report says something like 63% of executives now care deeply about social and plan to invest in it. So in terms of like giving you budget for creators, giving you headcount, like Carmen, you and I were talking about how old we are. Like there was a day where I had to like really push and fight for those resources. Yeah. and I would have to have like proven what the value of social is, you know, for the last 2 or 3 years to say like it is valuable in this way. Look at this data, look how we're going up and to the right with how the team is, you know, managing these communities or creating content. Imagine if you gave us more people or you gave us more whatever. So I think the fact that the report says, you know, it's not like, oh, 20% of everybody cares, our execs care about social. It's 63 and it's continuing to climb. And it's because I think they finally see the value of it, both for their personal brands, but also like the brand itself.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we're gonna like shift gears ever so slightly. I want to give you a moment to chat a little bit more about marketing against the grain. So we're going to talk so briefly, kind of like in a nutshell, marketing against the grain, in a nutshell, Slate, and then we're going to move to some audience questions. I'm not sure, Lauren, is it you that's speaking about marketing against the grain?
Yeah, it's me. It's me.
Take it away. I want you to tell, in your own words, tell us more about what marketing against the grain is.
Yeah, so just on this point of building brand awareness, marketing against the grain, we do sit as a media brand under HubSpot, but we're really looking to break into that brand awareness space. And we essentially interview like the coolest marketers and who are doing really great work right now on the ground. So we have a newsletter of about 150,000 subscribers where you can read these interviews. We've spoken to people from the Trevor Project, Carmen at Slate, so many different people. And then we also have a podcast as well with Kip and Kieran. They are the hosts and they are the CMO and VP of HubSpot at large, where they really nerd out on AI and how you can leverage your marketing team. It is like really rich and information. So and we're just a place that you can come if you want to learn how to launch on social. You want to learn, how to cultivate a brand on social media. You'll kind of hear from like the greatest marketers in the industry right now.
Amazing. Yeah, it was fun to do the interview. I got to meet Laura and she had lots of thoughtful questions. And I mean, we could put it maybe in the wrap up where we send out emails. I could put a little link to that interview because that was a nice Slate marketing against the grain.
Yeah, crossover.
Exactly. I'm also just going to speak briefly about Slate. I think if this is your first webinar or you aren't totally sure what we do, I find that because we have fun and funny videos that circulate out there on LinkedIn, people tend to have us on their radar, but they aren't always sure what Slate is actually for. And so I think a lot of people put us in this category with like a Sprout or a Hootsuite, but we don't do analytics. We just focus on content creation. So the kind of backstory is that Slate was started by two people who used to run social for the NFL, work in social and production for different NFL teams. And they wanted to make a tool that was the tool that they needed. So it's like a social media content creation platform made by social pros as well. Think of it as a comprehensive content creation platform. And I think it's nice that we understand the struggles of having to create both high quality and high quantity content. Our biggest goal, I would say right now, is also rooted in social team's biggest challenge, which is doing more with less. And I mean that on a literal level of content output, but also tech stacks. A lot of things are kind of bogged down by lots of tools and lots of switching between tools. And that can be, I think we focus a lot on efficiency, but I also just think it's kind of annoying. Like as somebody who creates content and manages people who create content, it sucks to have to like that. So with Slate, you ultimately get to define your brand. So you get this defining part of Slate where you have a brand hub and you have all your colors and fonts and they live in one place. Then you get to create your content. You can make carousels, you can make videos, you can make single image assets. I was actually speaking to one of our customers the other day, and she even designs the posters that they have in their in-person events in Slate. So you can have, one of your templates that you use online, but also in the real world. And then the last element after defining and creating is collaborating. So Slate has new collaboration features, which mean you can leave feedback in-app, in-line, no more like sending somebody timestamps through Slack or uploading something into a Google Drive folder, and all of that sits under one roof for extra ease and efficiency. And if you are interested in Slate or you want to hear more, we'll pop up a little, I'll have Emma pop up like a little CTA here for, there we go, interested in Slate. And we will come and find you and we'll chat with you. And yeah, so Emma, I am going to bring you on now as well, or you can pop back on. Hi, how's the tornado watch going?
I have survived. Luckily, y'all. I know that's what everyone was waiting for. They're waiting to see, is Emma still there? I am still here, guys. Don't
Okay, well, I'm relieved because if you hadn't popped on the screen right now, I didn't have a great plan B. So let's get to some audience questions. I want to hear what people are saying and let them have some time with Bryna and Lauren.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with what's your intake or thoughts on ManyChat?
And can you, is it possible, can you pop it up on the screen too, just so people can read it?
Yes.
Lauren, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can take that one. So yeah, ManyChat. Yeah, I think it's a really great tool. I think one thing that we're starting to notice is I keep going back to community, but ManyChat is a wonderful tool if you really want to get into someone's inbox. You have a resource or a guide that you think is really great, like HubSpot's State of Social Report or something like that. So I think it's a really great tool to leverage if you have something really meaningful to share with your audience. The one thing that I would say is when it comes to ManyChat, try not to overflood your audience with this. I think maybe that's something that brands tend to do a little bit. And I'm like, no, I don't want to, I don't know, some random word in the comment section to get like a fifth guide. But I think if you do it with balance and it's really meaningful for your audience, it can be really great just from like a community perspective. You get to automatically engage with your audience and then send them something really cool and valuable that I think can be useful.
Yeah, totally. I feel like ManyChat is just like in moderation. It can.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Awesome. Let's go over to. Ooh, I really like this one from Rebecca. What are some other tangible ways to balance messiness, authenticity with being polished, and grammar spelling mistakes free? We had a couple that were like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I want you guys to take it.
I mean, the one thing I will say as someone who oversees a brand channel is and my team would back this statement up is I think we are very precious about our brand here at HubSpot. So I think to the question around polish, like I do want polish, right? I don't want it to be overly polished. I don't want it to signal that like we took 6 months to work on it and like, have a huge crew behind us, because I feel like that makes it feel overdone for what social space really is. But I do want some, what I would call like intentionality behind it, because I think what we talked about today in the report is like anybody can make content now with AI, right? But can anybody make great high quality content? And I think that's where having some level of polish is still important. Whether that's, again, making sure things are on your brand voice or like how you would say something versus like, writing something on the fly. I think it's also in how carousels look and feel and sound, because the thing about social is someone could see something on a random Tuesday at 1:00 in the afternoon and then see it again like 2 months later on a different day. And you want that brand to feel consistent over the course of time so that people go, oh, that's that person, that's that brand, that's that thing I keep seeing. So in order to do that, you have to have some kind of brand consistency. So like small little things, like now that I'm going to share this with you guys, you probably won't be able to unsee it, but all of our TikTok and Reels content, we do pre-production alignment on that. So like we have styling, we have our creators go and like go shop for clothes, and we have a little pop of orange in some of their outfits. In the backgrounds, we have, a little piece of artwork that has orange. And it's that kind of stuff that subconsciously signals that this team is has craft, like they're taking time to think those little details through, but at the same time it's reinforcing HubSpot's brand colors and things like that. So I think to answer the question, it's a little bit of like a bit of both, making sure that authenticity comes through, but also making sure that there is some polish, because I think that's how you build brand.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's like a welcome thought, that it isn't just about like leaning into the most unhinged version of what you do and then praying that it works out.
Yeah.
Emma, there's a question here that's got 4 upvotes. That's the one from Rachel. It says, any more advice on what it means to be authentic as a brand? It can feel a bit difficult when brands are more faceless compared to all the individual creators out there. And I think this is a good one to like push us all on. Like, there's advice to be authentic. How does that actually, like, what is that in practice?
Yeah, Lauren, you can take it, or I can take it.
I'll just jump in super quickly here. I had a mentor one time tell me, Lauren, you have great instincts, and trust those instincts. And I think that's what it means to be is to trust your instincts, trust your gut as a human. And I know that can be really difficult for us to do as the people behind these brands, but I think you have to build that trust within yourself for the idea that you have. Not everything is going to stick, but I think if you have your brand sort of, idea and what they stand for, you're not going to do something super crazy to jeopardize that. Most of the time that doesn't really happen. So I think you just have to build a lot more trust within your ideas. Just as a social media person, I think oftentimes I've struggled with that, like not bringing my ideas forward because maybe they won't fit for a reason, but those initial first ideas that you have in a meeting, a creative brainstorm, they're typically the coolest ones and the ones that will probably like move the needle.
I would say too, just to build on that, like, yes, like we are the logo and we are the brand at the end of the day, and there's probably multiple people behind the content, and they're kind of faceless to the reference in this question. But I think at the end of the day, it's humans who are behind the brand, and I think sounding like a human and being relatable and how the humans show up on camera, and having scripts that sound, or like talking points that sound like it's coming from an actual person. One thing like we do at HubSpot is I try to strip out, like when we get a brief from our product team, I'm always dissecting like, what's the so what here? Like what why would somebody care about this? And then how can we make it sound like it's coming from someone who's in the industry, understands the space enough, but wants to tell you as a friend or like as a colleague how cool something is. So just making sure like the human element is always coming through in how something sounds, looks, feels, I think is what makes a brand feel authentic, as best we can as brands. You know what I mean?
Totally. One call out, Taylor, I think I might get her to pop the link for the report into the chat, and then we can queue up the next question. But there was just a few people asking about how they can get the report. I mean, please tell them how everywhere else it lives, but let's also get a link there. Amazing. I was just also trying to see which other questions had tons of upvotes, but definitely people want to link to the report so that they can have their data backing. Was there any other ones, Emma, that Taylor had called out as good questions? I'm like part looking at the screen, part looking at the questions.
Yes, let's do this one. Do the algorithms like threads with less than one reply? Should you always ask a question back to elongate the thread?
Like in the comment threads of social?
Yes.
It's quite tactical.
I know. That's a very deep question. I never really thought about that. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Carmen.
I mean, I think anything we say it would just be speculative, but yeah.
I mean, it just goes back to like the authenticity. It's like if you were a person like chiming in on a thread, would you keep going, just to game the algorithm, or would you just, have the reply and move on? Or maybe there's a discussion and it requires a little bit of back and forth. But I think like strip the algorithm and performance side out of it, and just like what instinctively feels natural to do. Replying in general, yes, I think like we've talked about, like the logo and the brand showing up in comments and community is always important, but don't force it. You know, if there's also like a detriment to being too active, where it's like, okay, brand, get out, you know, relax. Yeah, you've got no chill. We can see that it's like you're trying to game the algorithm. So just be like instinctive about how you show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about that when it comes to memes. Brands love to use memes, which like I'm cool with, but like know the lore behind the meme before you use it. That's just my thing. Like I'm all about the lore. So just be mindful of how you're using the memes too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think there's like that digital literacy piece that you're talking about with your hygiene crew that's like informing the rest of your team. And if you don't have that, then maybe don't dip your toes into the memes too hard. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you to everyone. I felt like a wobbly little deer because this is my first webinar without my Christina Pirro. But Emma, you and I believe, did it without getting, taken away by a tornado. So that's great.
Guess. It's starting to look dark again, so no promises for after this call, but yeah.
You do look like you're in evening and it's not evening. So thank you so much to Bryna and Lauren. It was really interesting to hear about HubSpot's report, and I feel like I'm going to leverage it too. So watch out, Eric. I'm coming for you with my chats. And if you have questions that didn't get answered, I mean, you can always reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we're eager and willing to answer. And great, thank you everyone for joining us.
Everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thanks so much, y'all.
Great.